Hello, everyone. My name is Arthur Govin. I am the Partnership Coordinator at the Next Street Driving School. I'm here today giving a presentation with our license testing manager, Jeff Smith, about the license testing process, availability, answering your questions. We're going to be here for about an hour. We're going to go through some frequently asked questions. And then, obviously, throughout the whole thing, please don't hesitate to, you know, submit a question in the chat, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. We're streaming on both at the same time, so if it takes me a second to get to your question, just bear with me. I will get to it. Yeah, we are ready to go now. Obviously, I'm just a little plug up top. We do all these webinars every single week. It's a different topic each week, so there's a lot of stuff that we cover, from license testing to last week we did insurance. And then, next week we're going to hopefully be able to show you some tips on buying a new car. So we're really excited to keep doing this, and follow us on all of our social medias. It's at the Next Street. But without further ado, I'm going to get started by first going through this webpage. So if you go to thenextstreet.com, here, I'll just start from the beginning. thenextstreet.com/license. Oops. It's going to take you to this page that we were already on, obviously. And then you're going to see a lot of different information for license testing, whether it's signing up or testing at the DMV. It gives you the prices for all of our different services. And then it also goes through any other information that you might need. What the best thing is for you could be different from somebody else. So we have options. And so that is where we are at right now with this. So if you have any questions that we didn't answer, then you can always refer back to this page. It has everything that you need to know on there. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Jeff Smith, our license testing coordinator, our license testing manager on. But just give me 1 second while I mess with my video. A little bit of technical stuff. This is just part of the business. There we go. We should be good now. Yep. So we are here with Jeff. If you want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, that would be awesome.
Hey, Arthur. Jeff Smith here for license testing manager at the Next Street. I've been with the company for 8 years, or a little over 8 years now. Seems
it's crazy.
Actually, yeah, it seems crazy. It's just that number keeps getting bigger, but I've loved my time here so much. It never seems like it's been that long. And I started off as an instructor, and now I run the testing department. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I actually started off in the testing department myself. Feel like we've went through this story a few times, but yeah, Jeff called me. I remember the first time that you called me for an interview, we were just kind of talking on the phone, but I don't know, we talked for what, like an hour and a half, 2 hours? We were just chatting, and then, I went through the whole process. I started as a licensed testing host, which is one of the big benefits of testing at the Next Street, is that you have someone there to talk to you, kind of calm you down. And Jeff taught me a lot about, just how to work with the customers and calm everyone down before their license test, because it could definitely be a stressful time, of course, before you take your license test. So it's always good to have someone there. And yeah, that's part of the benefit of testing with us. So if you could actually just start off right off the bat, with license testing, what do you have to do in order to be able to start testing for your license? When are you eligible? All of those things. And then we can get into what we do specifically at the Next Street versus the DMV and all that stuff. But just getting it to, baseline knowledge.
Absolutely. The eligibility can be quite confusing. It does depend if you're 16, 17 versus 18 and above.
Mm-hmm.
18 and above, it's a little simple. You have to have your Connecticut permit for at least 90 days. with at least the 8-hour safe driving course under your belt before testing. You can, of course, sign up for the test before all of that, but that is the requirement for on test day, having both the certificate that says you've done the class and having a permit for 90 days. For 16 and 17-year-olds, you have two choices. You can still take this minimum 8-hour safe driving class, like if you were when you were an adult, or if you were an adult. But you also have the option of a 30-hour class, and there's a few benefits to that. There's 15 2-hour classes that make up the 30 hours. And the package that comes with that is 8 hours of driving behind the wheel, which are 4 2-hour driving lessons. So with that package, and obviously being a little bit more robust and a lot more in depth with what to do and how to make you a better driver, both the state understands that and allows you to test a little bit earlier, and the insurance company understands that and gives you a bit of a discount. So those are the two benefits of the 30 hours. How much does it reduce your eligibility time for? If you are 16 and 17 and only take the minimum 8-hour safe driving course, you have to wait 180 days, which is just about 6 months. But if you do the 30-hour course, you can test 2 months sooner, just after 120 days. So that's a pretty big benefit if you want to get your license that much faster.
Yeah, huge. I mean, the difference, it's a 2 month difference, which can make a huge difference with that. So, all right. So basically, yeah, you said it. You take the driver's ed. You can we always recommend to do the 30-hour course. It pays off at the end when most of the time you get insurance with almost every insurance company. You get insurance discounts, and also you get to test a lot sooner, and that's huge. So
sorry,
go ahead.
one more thing. You're going to have to until you're 18. Obviously, you have parents' consent that has to be taken care of.
Right.
The state does mandate also at least 40 hours of behind the wheel training before you take your test. So they really care about that. If you are 16 and 17, they also recommend it for if you're obviously 18 and over. And that's really just the minimum benchmark for that. If you are a parent, you're signing off on the application that you have done the rest of the 40-hour with whatever we have not. We'll give you that certificate saying what you've done with us, how many hours of driving you've done with the Next Street. But then as a parent, you'll sign off on having done the rest of those hours at home. You don't need, some states have you hand in a driving log. I believe we send one out to you as part of a welcome email. And it's a good idea to keep track of if you're not able to get out every day, or if it's far and few between, which I hope it's not. But it would be where we want to make sure at least at minimum it's 40 hours, but hopefully a lot more before getting to that test.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing I always said when I was instructing, that with the test, we teach you what you need to know for the test. We teach you what you need to know for the driving, but it's a lot like, teaching someone how to swing a bat in baseball, where if you don't practice and get those hours in at home, it's never going to really work on the test. So
we teach everything that needs to be taught. You just have to practice it on your own.
Exactly. And I always say consistency is more important than, doing it for, so like going out on a Saturday for 3 hours, that's great. But I always found that it's better to go out, Monday through Friday for 20 minutes each day, just getting that consistency of behind the wheel, being comfortable, all of those things is always really, it always felt like the best way to do it. So we got one question saying, my son is doing his test with you guys in Old Saybrook. Is he using his car or your car? So go ahead.
It is our car. So it's really a streamlined process, very efficient. There's one vehicle inspection at the beginning of the day with our car. It takes a few minutes, and we normally do it with the student and the DMV agent. But then that car is used for the rest of the day. So each student does not have to worry one bit about vehicle inspection or the vehicle itself. It is the 4 cars we have in the testing fleet are all sedans. So that is something to note. If when you get there, it's a Hyundai Accent, and it will be a mid-size sedan that will be used for all of our tests.
Yeah. That's one of the benefits of testing with us is using our car, because one of those big things that people don't realize for their license test is that it has to pass inspection.
Yep.
And, you'd be surprised what the DMV is going to fail you on when it comes to inspecting your car. You think everything's good, but then you have a slight tint on your windshield and then you can't test. So,
We hear
yeah,
about that a lot. Yeah,
yeah, all the time.
people come out brand new cars straight from the dealership, and they don't understand why the dealership let them leave with a tint that's too dark for the DMV.
Yeah,
But then,
it's ridiculous. But that's why you're guaranteed to pass inspection. So you don't have to worry about, am I going to take my test today? Do I have to worry about my car? And then also you don't have to go to the DMV. So that's really nice too.
huge.
But really quick, I got just another quick question here. Oh, this is a great one. So, what is the number one reason why people fail their test?
I can certainly give you a few reasons, but the
Yeah.
number one reason, and we can get into those other ones, but the number one reason would probably be intersections, interacting with intersections, but mostly left turns. So
Yep.
everybody knows that a green light, you can go straight, you can take a right, you have the right of way to do those things. When it comes to taking a left, all our students know what blocking the box is, which is what makes blocking the box illegal is when you go up into the middle of the intersection and just stay there, waiting for oncoming traffic to pass. So when you stop, that's what makes it illegal. We do teach our students to anticipate. If there is one car left coming when you still have a green light, you can meet that car in the middle of that intersection as you're still rolling and pass them once they go through the intersection. So that is very, very important. We do see some students that you got to time it right. Some students just wait too long. Some students cut off other cars. Left turns is something you can go out and practice. Yellow lights are really, really hard and tough, and it's not like you can go out and practice those. But if you can, go out and practice these left turns and make sure that you are confident. You can see the gaps, you can time the openings right, and go when you have to go. If there is a line of cars that you cannot see the end of, oncoming cars in an intersection that you're planning on turning left at, then you have to sit there and wait behind that white line, that foot thick white stop line, to make sure that you're not blocking the box until you do see a gap that's coming. And then of course anticipate for that opening and make it as seamless of a turn as possible. But
Right.
that is what a lot of students do have trouble with.
Anticipating that, understanding that you got to wait behind the line, but when you do get an opportunity, you have to make that move. If you have the light and everything's good, but that is something that you need to practice. I mean, that's one of those things you need to get good at when you drive in real life. It's not just for the test, so practicing those things is obviously important.
Absolutely.
And then any other
On that on that subject, might as well go through the other ones. Um, both the second one I would say is both rolling right on red and rolling through stop signs. So that foot thick white stop line that we talked about, that cannot be passed at all before a 3-second stop. So that front license plate of your car cannot be on top of or past. And again, that's by the letter of the law, but it's what the DMV agents will hold you to when testing. And it's obviously for everyone's safety going into things like this. What we see a lot on the test is that a student is maybe 3 or 4 cars back in an intersection planning to turn right. And what all 3 other cars do in front of them is roll up, they look, and I'm sure it's safe, but then roll through that right on red. And the student does the exact same thing. And it fails them. I hate to say that word, but it hasn't come back for another test immediately. You have to treat a right on red like a stop sign. You don't have to do a right on red on your test if you don't want to. It's never legally, you're never legally obligated to take a right on red if you don't want to. And that being said, for all the parents out there or all the drivers out there, please be patient with people who choose not to turn red on red.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's
it-
that's asking a lot now, Jeff.
yeah, well, that's it. But it's very easy that that person could have had a very bad experience turning
Of
red on red, or
course.
from
Yeah.
where they are in the road, they cannot see well enough to make a safe turn.
Yeah.
So it's never going to be asked of it from a DMV agent on the test. You don't have to do it. May get your test over and done with a little sooner if you do. But also, rolling through stop signs is just as bad. We have students who pick up a lot of bad habits from who they drive with, and the 3 second, 3 count at the stop sign is an absolute must. That is definitely going to be on the test, and it is something that students just revert back to bad habits, and we try to, from day one, make sure that they know how important those full stops are.
Yeah. Don't turn red on your test. I think is what you're trying to say.
I
Just don't
can't,
do it.
yeah.
I
We do it
know
all.
I know you can't say, don't, but
Yeah,
it's just, you know, just don't. Don't put yourself in that position where,
yeah.
it gives the DMV agent another thing to look at that they wouldn't have needed to look at otherwise. So,
You can't fail for not doing
exactly. And then yeah, so yeah,
it. Number
stop
three.
stop at the white lines.
Yeah,
What else we got?
for sure.
What's
Believe it or not, speed. In
Yep.
this, everybody knows that the speed limit shows the maximum speed in ideal conditions. We still have students that go fairly above it, a bit above it.
Right.
And it's obviously, and it's not just going too fast. Obviously, if it is ideal conditions, then you need to be, the DMV agent wants to see you at the speed limit. You don't get anybody that fails for going one over, but it's all about muscle memory and being able to stay at a specific speed. But we also get students who fail for being too slow. Um, we all know how, 20 going 20 into 25 is too slow, and it makes the DMV agent very nervous. And again, they're not sure if you saw the sign for 25, and you're just being extra cautious. But as long as traffic and weather conditions aren't slowing you down for those reasons, obviously you can't. You have to go at the speed of traffic, and if it is adverse conditions, you do have to slow down a bit. Um, but they're going to want to see you stay up and at and hover around the speed limit when roads are clear and on your test. If you fluctuate, that's to be expected. But if you stay at 2 or 3, especially 4 miles an hour over the speed limit, you're going to be coming back for another test.
Yeah. Yeah. So uh, I always said the same thing too, where it's like they're not going to fail you for going, one over the speed limit, but it's just you gotta keep it under control. Understand that, you know, and that's all part of practicing. That's part
Yes.
of being
Yes.
prepared and getting ready for the test.
Yeah.
And it's just like the permit test or any written test. You have to study for it. And just because it's a practical test and you might feel okay driving, those little things of like maintaining your speed, going the right amount of speed is really important. And another thing with the DMV agent, if you look at it from their perspective, if you're going, 7 under the speed limit, not only are they questioning, like you said, about did they see the sign, but it's also a question of how comfortable are they actually behind the wheel? Can they maintain speed? Are they actually in a place where I want to give this person their license?
Exactly. This is a very it's I do not envy the DMV agent's job. It's a pressure-filled 15 minutes for both the DMV agent and of course the student. They have a very short window to see if the student is able to drive by themselves safe enough where they won't hurt themselves or anybody else. So students do have to be at their best, at always behind the wheel, but obviously for their tests as well. And it really does show if you're able to stay in and around the speed limit with those 40 hours of experience.
Yeah. We just got 2 questions asking pretty much the same thing. How long is the license test generally?
With us, it's pretty much around 15 minutes. We schedule our appointments every 15 minutes, so you have when you come into the Next Street location, whichever classroom it is that you decide to take your test at, you'll be greeted by a host, and we ask you to come 15 minutes early because there's a little bit of sign-in procedure paperwork that we want to just get out of the way. And of course, take time to go over what the test has been like and what to expect and answer any questions that you have about it. Once you get behind the wheel and again, no vehicle inspection. So once you get right in behind the wheel of the car, it's about 15 minutes on average. We have a few agents that we normally see go a little less. Some go a little over. It's going to fly by no matter what. Even if you see that, don't time yourself or look at the clock. But even you may be out there for 20 minutes, but it's still going to seem to fly by. If you do decide to test at the DMV, who knows? No, just kidding.
No, but it kind of.
It can go for very long. Some DMV agents, just by proxy, the DMV branches are normally near highways, and sometimes you see students go on highways, and the test takes a little bit longer that way.
Yeah.
The vehicle inspection is involved at the DMV branch. Obviously, whatever vehicle you decide to use at the DMV branch, the DMV agent will come out with you, circle around the car, and obviously check all the lights inside and out. So there's a little bit, that takes a little bit of time, but normally we see those tests average around anywhere from 15 to 25 minutes.
Yeah, so they're usually run a little bit longer probably, from my experience.
Yeah, 20 to 25 minutes once you're actually out on the road.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, the whole that's another big benefit of testing with us is the whole experience. When you go to our classroom to test, you know, we ask you to come 15 minutes early so we can kind of talk to you, answer any questions you have, and make sure your paperwork's all in line. Then you take your test, usually about 15 minutes. You're out of there in 30 something minutes, right? 35 minutes max. And then when it comes to the DMV, you know, they don't always run perfectly on time if you've ever been to the DMV. So, you know, chances are you're going to be waiting longer than when your test was scheduled to take, or you're going to be waiting longer than when your tests are scheduled. And then the tests are usually a little bit longer. Your inspection's longer. The more time you're sitting there thinking about your test, the more nervous you're going to be. Also, you know, again, DMV is not the most fun place to just hang out and sit with while being nervous. So that's a big thing too.
I do want to give DMV a little credit with the appointment schedules that they have now. Things do seem to be running a little bit more smoothly than before, but they do often see delays. And we do talk about, I just want to clarify, we do, you and I have been mentioning DMV agents this whole time, and the DMV does supply us with these tests when we do schedule them. And so the DMV agents are in a specific unit at the DMV that come out to all driving schools, part of this program in the state. So you are getting behind the wheel with a DMV agent who is the only people licensed in Connecticut to approve and pass you for a license test. So you will have outstanding interactions and customer service with everyone up until you get in that car. Some DMV, and again, DMV agents are very, very nice people, but some are just stone-faced and will just do the job.
Yeah.
They may not even introduce themselves, and they're not into some of them aren't into small chat at all. So don't be intimidated by that. Just come to expect that, you know, they're there to do their job, and you're there to do yours.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, we got a couple other questions here. This is actually about the permit tests, and I can take this one. For the permit test, should I study the questions from or the driver's learning manual? Both. So study the learner's manual. I know it's not the most exciting document to look at, but exactly. But it's something that you gotta at least take a look at, go through, learn what what you can from it, and then we always recommend, if you go on our website, actually, thenextstreet.com/permit, we have a link right there that brings you to practice permit tests. So we usually say if you take the practice permit test and you pass 4 or 5 times in a row, you're pretty good for the permit test. But I also do have a webinar on our YouTube page about permit testing, everything you need to know about it, including how to study and some tips with that. So check that out after this. And we got another question about can you insure a car with a permit in Connecticut? I actually did a insuring a teen driver webinar last week with someone from our partners at Smith Brothers Insurance, and all insurance questions are over there. And generally when it comes to a permit, you can't insure a car with just a permit. You can be put usually when you get your permit, you can be put onto your parents' plan. Like the insurance companies like to know that you have your permit, but you don't really need to be officially on the plan until you have your license. And
Yes.
then
You bring up another really good point, Arthur. Sorry.
yeah, no, please go ahead.
But as the licensed driver, obviously, if you're a student with a permit, you have to have somebody, an experienced driver in the car with you at all times, which means they've had their license for over 4 years, and within those 4 years have had no suspensions. So with that person in that car is always responsible. If there's an accident with a permit driver, that licensed driver in the car in the passenger seat is the one whose insurance is going to be used, and how, all the questions and the names on the paperwork is who that person, where it will come from.
Exactly.
So same thing with insurance. They really don't. Insurance companies really don't care about permitted drivers at all, because it's all under the car insurance that they're using, and of course the person who's in the car with them.
Yeah. So, and that's why it's like some insurance companies, will ask and like to know, but it's not really applicable until you're licensed. We got another one that said, do we have to pay? Okay. So, this actually is good. So we got a question about what do we do if we fail the license test? Unfortunately, it happens. What do you do afterward?
We do hate to see that happen, but obviously, like I said, pressure-filled 15 minutes, and even students who are all-stars behind the wheel at home and with us, things can come out during the test, where again, that intimidating DMV agent just stares you down, and you make a silly mistake, and of course, you have to come back.
Yep.
If that is the case with us, we will help you. We will give you one-on-one help immediately. We have a specific coordinator that you can email and call right after and get them to help you with this process. It is at that time you can choose to test again with us or at the DMV. Either way, no matter who you fail with, when you fail, it is a 2-week waiting period before you can test again. So again, whether you're failing, if unfortunately you took chances at the DMV and failed and want to come to the next street, we'll have to know that and book it at least 2 weeks out from that point. But it will be another 40. If you go to the DMV, it will be another $40 fee for that. Okay. For the DMV, and then we have our to retest with us. We can obviously walk you through that process and talk you through that over the phone.
Yeah, very good. So we have a couple more things I'm looking at. What is the passing rate for the license test at the next street?
We don't market this very much, this number. Year to date, it is 93.5% is our pass rate. And the reason we don't market it too much is incredibly high. And we're very, very proud of that. But we don't want to think that people can come to the next street without having practiced and then get behind the wheel of the car doing their test and think that 93.5% is going to affect them at all.
Right.
Statistics don't mean anything to the individual. You still have to practice and get as much experience behind the wheel as possible, and that will make you on the day of the test not have any nerves, not have any anxiety, not have any of that could cause problems on your test. Practice makes perfect. And again, like I said, we're very proud of that pass rating, but it's where you have to come prepared still, because there is that 7% that unfortunately either has a a hiccup, a brain fart, or just doesn't come prepared, the DMV agent is going to know right off the bat if you simply just don't have those hours.
Yeah, and you know, yeah, that's always important. But to give our instructors a little bit of credit with this, a big reason why the pass rate, what
Yeah,
I think a big reason why the pass rate's higher when you test at the next street is because they're, by law, they have to do at least 1 2 hour lesson with one of our instructors at the next street. And a lot of the times, even if it's just one lesson, they can tell you a lot of the things that you need to work on and be ready for, prepared for when you do take your license test. So that is something to keep in mind is, if you take the 8 hour course, you can test at the next street. I think you said this earlier, but you need to do at least 1 2 hour lesson. And that's by the state, that's
yeah.
not something that we can control.
Really, really good point, Arthur. Yeah, that's true against across the state for any driving school. If you
Yes.
plan on testing with a driving school, you have to do a 2 hour minimum behind the wheel lesson. Really good point.
We have another one here. You did mention this earlier, but you could just quickly touch on it again. When you're taking your road test, do they take you on the highway?
We don't normally see that at our locations. Anything is possible anywhere. First of
Yep.
all, any kind of parking maneuver, anything is possible anywhere. But it's usually where the DMV agents at our locations stick to the 15 minutes, and so that doesn't bring them onto the highway all too often at all. Certain DMVs, Bridgeport, Weathersfield, Enfield, are fairly close to highways where we can see students and hear about students actually going onto the highway, just 1 or 2 exits and things like that. But it does happen. Old Saybrook too, I think, is right next to a highway.
Yeah.
So
So
we do hear about it at the branches often enough. We don't ever really see it at all. Never say never, but we don't really see it at all at our branches.
yeah, it's not
At our
not very,
locations, sorry.
yeah, not very common with that. And on that same vein, we have another question saying, what are the chances of having to do a parallel park? If you want to touch on that a little
Yes.
bit.
Let me first start off. Actually, I said this about the highway driving. You should be prepared for both parallel parking and highway driving by the time your test comes.
Yes.
It's not anything you want. If you're going to take away from this that you don't have to practice that, that's not what I'm talking about. That's not what I want to get through. You absolutely do have to practice both of those. Highway is obviously something people do most every day. Parallel parking, again, if you're in the city, then yeah, you see it more often than in the suburbs and rural areas. But you do absolutely want to practice. We have seen those on our tests, and we do see those at branches also. So we see them more often at the branches, and we have seen them at our tests for sure. So it is something that you do have to practice, no matter where you test. Parallel parking, obviously, it's very difficult, but it does tell the DMV agent a lot about you. Especially, it takes you have to be using all your mirrors right. Spatial awareness comes into key as a key factor for parallel parking, things like that. So yes, please absolutely practice both. But again, we see a lot more highway and a lot more parallel parking at branches than we do at our TNS locations.
And just a quick little plug here. If you do
Oh
want
yeah,
if you do want to learn how to parallel park, a really easy 30-second video, check out our TikTok. We went, as the kids say, viral, last week on TikTok. So yeah, check that out, and you can there's a lot of driving tips on there too. We're going through all the parking maneuvers, all that stuff, and the parking maneuver that we do see a lot on tests is the back end to the right. That's kind of the one where if you go through driver's ed in Connecticut, it's kind of burned into you. You know that's coming. It's a similar, any parking maneuver shows the DMV agent that you have the ability to kind of move the car and have that range of motion. But one question, because we just happen to get it, if you do park on the line, if you're on the line when you're parking, will they fail you? And that's a question that we get a lot.
that's a very, very good question. I can speak for our locations. The DMV branch again is I can't speak for them. We have some students that only have the one try at the DMV branch. For us at TNS, we have the DMV agent will give you multiple tries, but we have had the DMV agent ask the student, "Are you done?" And if at that time the student does say, "Yes, I'm done," and on their first attempt at a back end and they are on the line, the DMV agent will likely fail the student right there and then without giving a second try.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful and volunteer to fix it if you believe that you're on the line. You can put it in park, you can open up the door, you can check. Obviously, your mirror should be telling you what you need to know, along with the backup camera. And let me put a pin on that backup camera thing.
Yeah.
But yes, we normally see 3 attempts, or including the initial first attempt at our TNS locations. We are able to see the students, back into a spot, happen to be on the line, pull forward, do an S correction is what we call it, and then back right in. You don't have to start all over again or anything like that if you find yourself on the line from your first back in. But the DMA agent will give you another try as long as you say, I can see I'm on the line, let me fix this.
Yep.
Or if you just go into it without any words exchanged. But if the DMV agent asks you, "Are you done?" they're going to grade you on what you've done at the time they ask you that question if you say yes.
Yeah, and that is another thing I always emphasized when I was doing instructing is that, and I actually talked to a DMV agent who because when you're doing the license test hosting, you do kind of get to know the DMV agents, and I was talking to one of them, and he said flat out, he was like, honestly, when we test at your location and someone gets it on the first try with the back end, that's great, but it usually kind of just shows that they have an idea of how to kind of like do the motion, and it's like they've learned the trick or whatever. But when you do get a chance to pull up and kind of adjust, and if you can get that little adjustment, that shows them a lot. So don't be afraid if you have to fix it. They a lot of the times it shows them that you really have an understanding of how to move the car around. And again, like you said before, if you're in a position where you're not 100% sure that you're in the spot, put it in park, put the parking brake up, open the door, check yourself in the lines, and then if you have to fix it, you fix it. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, don't be shy. Again, the DMV agent may not talk much at all, but don't be shy about talking to them. You cannot ask for instructions on anything. You should know how to do everything by the time you take your test. But you can let them know it's like, "Hey, I may be on the line. I want to put this in park, open up the door and check my lines.
Right.
If I'm on the line, I'm going to fix it." Just let them know. We have students that talk themselves through, that don't ask questions, and they're not really talking to the DMV agent. They just talk themselves through what they're doing. But that also shows the DMV agent that they know exactly what to do. It's
Exactly.
not at all anything to be looked down upon. You can talk out any back end, any procedure that you're doing on the road. That helps.
One thing that you had mentioned that you said you wanted to put a pin on, and we even just got a question for, can you use the backup camera while testing?
Yes, but
Yes, right.
all obviously everybody licensed here can remember that backup cameras used to be a luxury item, and now they're mandatory on all basic models. All car manufacturers are putting in backup cameras on. It's mandatory. It's a safety feature. It is mandatory. So we have them on our testing vehicles, and yes, you can use them. You can't stare at them. As much of a fisheye lens as they use, and as much as you can see from there, it does not show you everything. So you do want to still look over your shoulder, use the side view mirrors, keep your head on a swivel. And at the very end of the maneuver, the backup camera is when it helps the most. You want to make sure that you do not go too far back into a guardrail or behind the white line that you have to stop before. So yes, feel free to use your backup camera, glance at it as you're going through this maneuver. All parking maneuvers should be done at a walking pace. Don't do it any faster. You're just going to scare the DMV agent, even if you know what you're doing. There is such a thing as too slow also, though. You have to be really slow to catch for the DMV agent to say anything. or take notice. But a walking pace, you want to be at the ability of a walking pace. And obviously, like I said, checking your blind spots and all mirrors, and finally the backup camera as you do all the reverse maneuvers anyway, left, right, back, in and parallel park.
Yeah. So with the camera, it's just glances, just like with any
Yeah.
other part of the backup. You know, it's like you said, your head's on a swivel. You're turned around, you're looking behind
Yes.
you, because if you can't, the camera shows you where you are in relation to the curb and maybe another car that you're coming up against. But if there's a car that's driving through the parking lot, you're not going to be able to see it in the camera on time. So that's
Yes.
why they want to see that you're doing the safe thing with that.
Actually, yeah, DMV states actually started with this, but DMV states that you have to look in the direction the car is moving. So when you
Exactly.
are in reverse, you have to be looking over your right shoulder and looking out that back window for the majority of that maneuver. Obviously, eventually, as you get closer into the lines, out of the aisle and more into the parking space, you want to reference your side view mirrors and backup camera. But in the very beginning, and like I said, for the majority of it, you have to be looking out the back window. That's for K turns and left and right back ends and parallel.
Yep.
Anytime in reverse.
Anytime you're in reverse.
Yeah.
Then we have, this question. I can answer this quickly. How is the test after driver's ed? Similar to driver's permit that you need 18 out of 25. So there's a lot of like a lot of people's parents, it used to be that they take a written test before they take their road test, but that's not the case anymore. Your written test is your permit test. After that, there's no written test after that. It's just the practical when you get in the car.
No, and the DMV agent won't be asking you questions or anything like that.
Exactly.
Okay, I got a story behind that one.
Yeah, please.
Again, the DMV agent's not going to ask you questions while in the car. You're going to have to just prove to him or her that you know everything by doing and following directions, right? Not asking for instructions on how to do anything. You can't ask them anything. Maybe to repeat themselves if they've given you a direction you didn't hear.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we get people, DMV agents that we get out of the unit and see at our DMV branches really do care. They really do want to see the student pass. A lot of what we teach, well, it's by law, you have to use the parking brake. I've used parking brake and emergency brake interchangeably, but I'm really trying hard to call that a parking brake.
Yeah.
It has to be engaged by law. It has to be engaged every time the car's in park. Not a lot of people know this, and at home we don't see it taught or used very often. Some people also just have it as a pedal on the left side of the floor of the car, and not in the center console where it's a little easier to access and obviously right there in front of you. So even though we teach this time and time again in the cars when they have us for 8 hours, at home they have at least 32 hours where they may not be using it. So when you get into one of our cars at the test, whether you decide to have us meet you at the DMV for a test or test at our location, the parking brake will be up in that car when you get in it, and they're expecting you to engage it once again when the car is stopped at the end of the test. We have students that start to back out or pull out of the space first thing during their test, and obviously it's very sluggish. The parking brake is still engaged, and we have the cars beep now at you.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way,
they yell at you. Yeah.
You have this red brake light on in your dashboard, which again, you should be looking over the dashboard before you get going. Anything red or yellow, you have to take care of. This is bright red on your dashboard. And the student continues to go. This happens very often, not very often, but often enough. And they continues to go. And the DME agents want to give you a solid try. They're like, what's that noise? Is that my seatbelt? No, it's not my seatbelt. Is it us? Is it not us? And some students just ignore them entirely. They just, no, that's not us. And they continue to go. And by the time you reach the edge of the parking lot and go out onto the road, they're going to have you turn around. So please practice with that parking brake. I cannot stress that enough. By law, you want to, not only on hills, but just have it be a habit at all times when the car is in park to engage that parking brake as well. It is expected of you on the test.
Yeah, and it is perfect because someone actually just asked that. So, yeah, parking brake, you got to use it. Use it. Get in the habit of using it all the time, because yeah, theoretically, in many states, well, not theoretically, by law, your car shouldn't move when it gets, like, if you get rear-ended when you're parked, your car should not move that much. And with the parking brake on, it can generally, decrease damage. It can make it so you don't go flying into the road or flying into someone else in front of you. So, yeah, when you're parked, put up the brake, or put it down with your foot. In a lot of new cars too, there's a button that you press. But
Yes.
in
Yeah.
our cars, it's a handbrake that you pull up, and you pull it up until it's all the way up, and you're nice and secure.
One more quick comment on that. Insurance companies look at that also. Obviously, a lot of us know on hills usually to engage it, even though I should be engaged at all times. But if you are on a steep hill and your brakes give out and you back up, you're not in the car at all, but it just brakes give out while you're away, hits something, the insurance company is going to ask you why wasn't the parking brake engaged, and that's
Right.
going to cause problems or higher payments and things like that for that. So it is by law, it has to be engaged every time the car is in park.
Yeah. Let's see. Any other questions? Okay. If I take the license test with the next street, um, and then I fail, does that mean I have to pay the full price to take the license test again with us, and including the DMV fees? How does that work?
We have the 135 payment of the initial test. We then, after, if it is a retest, then include the $40 in that 135 again. So we do give you a little bit of break. We take a cut on our end for a retest. We want to see you pass. We want to see you come back to us. So we will then include that $40 DMV fee with the 135 if you decide to test with us again.
So basically, we you don't have to pay the DMV fee for testing again. We
Correct.
pay for that. Okay.
Yes.
So that answers that. And then, one last thing that we didn't even get to yet, and then we'll take any last questions that come through. But what do you need to bring to your license test? What do you actually
Oh
need
yeah,
to physically bring?
this
That's
is usually question
usually
number
my
one.
first
Yeah.
question, but we kind of got sidetracked. So
Absolutely, very, very good question. And you do want to come prepared. Obviously, if you go to the DMV branch, they'll turn you away in a heartbeat, and we'll work with you. If you come to ours, we'll have a little bit more leeway. We can put you maybe a little bit at the end of the test if something is forgotten or it has to be fixed. So closed-toed and heeled shoes. We want to make sure that, again, safety is paramount, and we don't want you second guessing or slipping out of your flip-flops or anything like that. So please come prepared with sneakers or shoes or boots if you need to. And then, of course, this is a big one, corrective lenses. The only reason you should have this restriction on your license is if you used your glasses or corrective lenses during your vision test at the DMV when getting your permit. If you are listening to me right now, please check your permit now. We have had mistakes in that restriction accidentally put on that. If you flip it back over on the back side of your permit, it should say, I think Class D is no restrictions, and Class B, I believe, is corrective lenses. I really should know that off the top of my head, but please, either the DMV is the only one that can fix that if, again, it was incorrectly put on your permit. If you had to use corrective lenses and don't usually drive with them, you still, well, by law, you have to have them in the car. And of course, the DMV agent is going to check on that and make sure that you have corrective lenses or glasses with you if that restriction is on your license permit. So please make sure that it is, again, not a mistake, because
right.
you've had a few of those, but also that don't forget them, even though you don't normally use them, or they may just be for reading.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, the $84 check made out to the DMV, that is for a 7-year license. And I am so happy the DMV switched this around, but you do not have to go to the DMV anymore. If you're a parent with a second or third child coming through our program now, you might have had your first go through this program and have to visit the DMV for the physical license after the test. That is no longer the case. We do have this system where if you bring this check, we will mail it, we will overnight it with the test results to a branch at the DMV. that will get started immediately on processing your physical 7-year license. So again, this is a DMV fee that is for that 7-year license and the cost of the plastic card, plastic license. Please bring a check or money order. It cannot be cash and it cannot be credit card. And we will get that out to the DMV immediately. Something else that is really beneficial that the DMV came on board with is leaving with a small pink slip. Actually, I have it right here. So if you pass your test, you would leave with this. And along with this and your permit, you will have a 30-day temporary license, which is awesome. So again, no need to visit the DMV. I hope your permit picture was a good one because that's what they're going to use on your license.
Yeah.
So with both of those, a permit and that pink slip I just showed you, keep that with you at all times when driving, and you can drive as if you had your license. Within that 30 days, the DMV will mail you the physical license. And then the one other thing, sorry. The CI-12 form. And DMV does a few things odd. If you're testing with us at the Next Street, they use a CI-12 form that we happily email you and can easily find online. Please fill out the top portion of that. It does ask for a social security number, address, date of birth, and a few other things. It does have to be signed by a parent if you are under the age of 18. There's both a parental consent form and then a home training signature. A lot of parents, and again, you can do this when you come in, you can sign it. Hopefully you can come prepared with it filled out, but just to save time. But if you come, we do want you to sign that portion. One parent has to sign both parts of this application, and it asks for, again, the parental consent for anybody under 18, and then home training. We give you a certificate. I don't have one with me, but a yellow note card certificate that will show what we've done with you for our driving portion. You signing off on that application states that you've done the other 38 or however many hours at home with the child, so with your child, our student. So that is an important application that, yes, has to come with you to the DMV or for the DMV agent to see when getting in for the test. And of course, you have to bring your permit, which I didn't add to that list, but come prepared with your permit as well.
Yeah, so it's permit, the CI-12 form, your certificate of completion for the driving school, which we provide.
Yes, we will bring that.
Yeah.
So, but yes, if you test at the DMV, don't go to the DMV either if that's where your test is without that yellow slip.
Yeah, and then closed-toed shoes, obviously, contacts or glasses if you need it, and that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, and experience.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a couple questions, and then we're gonna wrap it up. This one we talked about a little bit, but someone asked, if you're testing with the Next Street, should I be prepared to do a parallel park or just back in? Always be prepared to do the parallel park, but you're almost definitely going to be doing a back in, but there's always a chance that you could do a parallel park, so be prepared for it.
Parallel parking is obvious. People ask that question because they already know it's a little bit more difficult than what a back in is. If you master the parallel parking, everything else will come so much easier to you. Again, with using your mirrors, knowing the spatial awareness and how the car works and moves, and then of course, squeezing into spots and everything else will be a breeze after you master that parallel parking. But it takes a little bit more time. We do have that TikTok video, but we also have much more in-depth YouTube videos that are very helpful for each and every maneuver that you'll have to ever use.
Exactly. We had a couple other ones. One person asked earlier and I missed it. We also did kind of go over this, but what are the most common reasons for cars to not pass inspection? I believe it's, window tints, brakes, and what else?
Any lights that are out, and if
lights
your check engine
out
light is on as well, your tire pressure light is on.
Yep.
Those are our reasons to DMV. If there's any gashes on the outside of the car too, I've seen a car fail for that. Things in dents I don't think are much of a concern, but if there's open gashes and things like that, the DMV agent might not approve the car. But really, we see a lot of problems with tints, and then of course, if there's any headlight or even if it's broad daylight, they need to check all lights, including the brakes, hazards, and headlights, and then of course the dashboard they're going to look over as well. Make sure the check engine light is not on and that the tire pressure and a few others, obviously. aren't on.
Yeah. Someone asked, do we rent our vehicles for the road tests? Nope. We provide the vehicles. We own the vehicles, so they are, very well taken care of, and we know exactly what we're getting with them. We usually, when we get new cars for our fleet, most of the time the new cars become our
Yes.
testing vehicles. They're always our, newest cars that are, the easiest to drive usually.
That brings up a really, really good point. Sorry to interrupt,
No,
Arthur.
please.
Because of that 2 hour rule, again, any driving school, you can't bring a short-term lease or a rented car to the DMV to use. For us not to seem like a rental service, any driving school mandates, or the state mandates, that we have that 2 hour lesson minimum if you want to use our car for the test. For whatever reason, our test at our location is capped by an age limit. If you are 22 years and older, you cannot test with us at our location. And I'm so sorry. I wish it wasn't that way, but you will have to test at the DMV. And again, that's statewide, any driving school. If you are 22 and older, if you're 21 and younger, we encourage you to sign up with us. But if you want to still use our car, if you don't have one, or your check engine light's on, or it requires too much work, whatever the reason may be, feel free to, we can meet you at the DMV. That is one of our products, meet at the DMV, which is when we show up a half an hour early before your scheduled test time, show you the inside of the car, and get you ready for your test at the branch.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up. If there's any questions that we missed, please, there's a lot of ways to get in touch with us. You can message us on any one of our social medias. We always have people checking that. You can email us at info@thenextstreet.com. Give us a call, but we always recommend, reaching out in one of those other avenues, especially if it's just something simple like that. If you missed any of this webinar with Jeff today, please, you can watch it right back immediately after this. You can keep it on, replay it over and over again before your
Arthur,
test.
One quick thing. I am so sorry to interrupt. One quick thing I want to mention. I mentioned this briefly at the beginning. You can book your test sooner, as soon as you get your permit with us or at the DMV. Obviously, you have to meet eligibility and make sure your classes and drives are done before that test date.
Yes.
But please, if you haven't booked your test yet, please book it now. We just got a bunch of Q4 dates in from the DMV. Again, we negotiate and get what they can as far as supplies for these tests at our locations. DMV is working with us, and again, they are coming in. We are trying to get as much as we can. But just recently, this week, we opened just under 1,000 slots for testing at different locations around the state. Please book them as soon as you can. Because they are going to go very, very fast. Like I said, we're trying to get a lot more, but we are a little bit limited with what we have as supply and what the DMV can provide. But please book your test sooner rather than later, because there is a very long backlog.
Book your test now. If you're watching this,
yeah,
and you have your permit, book your test. Do it. Get it done.
You can change it. You can always change it.
Exactly. If you're not ready, you could change it, but get that date so that you are ready for it. But yeah, I think that's going to be it. I'm going to be on next week. Hopefully we're going to be talking about buying a new car and some tips and tricks to buying a new car with our partners at Shaker Auto Group. This was all about testing. If you missed any of it, like I was saying, please watch it back. It's on YouTube and our Facebook page right after this. And yeah, if you have any questions, email us, message us, whatever you need. Thank you so much, Jeff, for being on. As
Very
always, well. It's a pleasure to talk to you. And we'll be on probably in about a month and a half or something.
I love
bring
this.
you back
Absolutely.
on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next week.